Hey everybody, welcome to D Bronx Podcast. We're actually coming at you a little bit later. Took a little bit of more time between podcasts than we would have hoped. I'm Austin. I'm joined here with Kevin. How you doing, Kevin?
Hey, Austin, doing well?
Yeah, we've had a little bit of difficulty with the tech side of things here tonight, but it looks like we're up and running now. And we recorded a podcast a couple weeks ago that ended up falling through because one of our tracks was entirely corrupted. So just an update on us
And that was
for you
actually the
that
best
don't.
podcast we've ever done, in my opinion. It's very sad. I mean, it's like a
It
tragedy
was
that
it was very it was yeah, and I think we had a lot of good insight, but there's nothing we can do about it now. Um, So moving on, obviously we've had quite a few things happen since our last podcast. We did a draft recap and everything with our last podcast that didn't make it to the release. Um, However, we're going to talk a little bit about the draft today. We're going to talk about OTAs, position battles, who may or may not make the team. Any surprises on that, and then we're just kind of going to flow, just talk Broncos and see where it goes. No die hard plan tonight. Um, but I do want to talk. Obviously, let's start draft because that's kind of the thing that is the most what's the word the most pressing in terms of how it affects the team and the shape of the roster and everything. Let's talk draft. We'll go over each draft pick here in a second, but out of the guys that we drafted in this draft, who are you most excited about? Or who do you think maybe is the biggest steal or what have you? Kevin, let's just go ahead and start with you.
All right, yeah, I was prepared. So, super happy with our first round draft pick. I mean, it was getting to be tiresome watching our left tackle just become a turnstile, and from Peyton Manning to whoever we put back there was getting slaughtered. I think
Yeah.
Garrett Boyles was really the only pick uh, at that position, number 20. Feel good about that. A couple other names: Jake Butt,
Jake Butt,
tight end out of Michigan. I mean,
I love
this
that pick.
guy, this guy was clearly a first or second round talent. Fell to us in the fifth because he had some knee problems, but when he gets healthy, he could be our answer at tight end. And
Yeah.
then Mr. Irrelevant, Chad Kelly. Now he's got the bloodlines, and believe me, I'm old enough. I remember Jim Kelly, his
Yeah.
uncle, when he was a
Yeah.
rookie. And Jim Kelly went to University of Miami. He actually signed with the Houston Gamblers of the USFL, and because he didn't want to go to Buffalo in 1983, and he
Wow.
spent he spent 3 years in the USFL. That league folded. For our younger listeners, you're going to have to Wikipedia the USFL.
USFL, right?
But that league existed. Donald Trump owned a team. He owned the New Jersey Generals, and so
That I
they
did not know.
they were competing against the NFL for talent, and they signed a couple marquee guys like Jim Kelly. Kelly went to the Houston Gamblers, and he lit it up. And won a couple championships down there, and then eventually ended up with Buffalo and had a Hall of Fame career. But Chad Kelly, apparently a knucklehead off the field. You know, he bounced around from Clemson he went to a community college or Division III or someplace and won a national championship. And then he went to Mississippi. Mississippi, you've got Eli Manning went there, you got Archie Manning went there, a bunch of other good quarterbacks. Chad Kelly owns a ton of passing records at Mississippi. So I think a big talent, big arm, super athletic, uh, and look out for him. Not this year, but maybe in the future, depending on what happens with Simeon and Paxton Lynch.
Yeah, good points. Obviously, Jim Kelly. I mean, that run that he had with the Buffalo Bills, run he had with the Buffalo Bills, what was it, four consecutive Super Bowls?
4 losses in a row, but let's
Four
give them
in a
credit.
row.
But they have 4 rings. They had 4 rings. They were AFC Championship rings. But listen, no team has ever gone to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row. So
Except for them, it's just been
except
them.
for them, yeah.
And just so you guys are aware, Ian has experienced some more of the technical difficulties that we were struggling with earlier, unfortunately. So if we can get him back on the call, we will. But until then, we're just gonna keep moving, see if he can work on that end of things. Um, But Kevin absolutely made some good points there with Chad Kelly. I'm really excited about Jake Butt because we've needed a tight end to come through. I mean, with Hireman not looking like he's going to perform the way that we had hoped when we drafted him, Jake Butt is a low first, high second round talent that we got. What was it, fourth, fifth round
Fifth round.
that we yeah, it just I think he could end up being the steal of the draft. Um, but our biggest weakness last year um, was obviously the offensive line. That was the problem that we consistently had last year, um, both in the passing and the running game. So I'm really excited about Garrett Bowles. He definitely has that mean streak that you want in a in your star, your left tackle, your star guy. It's gonna be interesting to see how that affects the players that we do have because obviously we signed um, what's his name? Leary, Ronald Leary from Dallas, and we sold and we also signed Manel Watson, I believe his name is from the Raiders. It's going to be interesting to see how these guys fit into the plan, into the scheme of things when it's all said and done. But what about some of the other guys that we do? Because we drafted, we had a I thought we had a pretty good draft. Obviously, time will tell. But what are some of the other guys that maybe stood out to you?
Yeah, I got to be careful. I'll jump in and render an opinion, but it seems like every year I feel good about our draft.
I know
it's like
that's what I'm saying. Time will
you
tell.
look at the YouTube, they all look good in college, of course, and it always feels like they fell to us. But I think this year I feel especially good, because we ended up getting quality guys where we need them. Offensive line, Demarcus Walker. You know, uh,
Yeah.
we definitely need some help on the defensive side. Line play, obviously, run defense was not a strong suit last year. This guy looks great. Our offense was on life support last year. I mean, gosh, it was 2 years in a row. It's been dreadful. Now we've got some game breakers potentially. Carlos Henderson, love this guy out of Louisiana Tech, super fast, touchdown
He looks
maker. He could
he
drop
looks
into slot
play. Big
and
play guy.
really help our offense. And then the other guy to watch out for, I think, is Isaiah McKenzie. Both he's a wide receiver out of Georgia, a super fast, small guy. I think McKenzie and Henderson, one of those two, will probably also return punts, and we know that's been a position of weakness
Yeah,
forever.
absolutely,
So
absolutely.
I think I feel pretty good. Yeah, we obviously went a little bit heavier on offense where I think we needed it, but the Demarcus Walker, the guy Brandon Langley is off the chart in terms of measurables. Super
Oh,
fast,
absolutely,
tall,
absolutely.
and apparently it's gotten good reviews in OTAs or whatever they have camp during the summer. So yeah, I feel pretty good. I think I got the number one pick we needed to get. It wasn't super
Yeah,
sexy, right? But we needed that offensive tackle.
doesn't have to be sexy. It needs to be effective. Um, Absolutely, and obviously, I think a lot of us going into the draft, we all wanted Christian McCaffrey for obvious reasons.
Sexy
Uh,
pick.
just a game changer, and obviously the son of former Bronco great Ed McCaffrey. Um, however, he ended up going what number 8, I think it was to the Eagles. I don't think. I mean, we hoped that he would fall, but I don't think there's any
He went to
realistic.
Carolina. Carolina.
Right, you're right. You're right. It was Carolina. I don't think there was any realistic expectation that he was going to fall all the way to us. The only way that I think we were going to be able to get him is if we made any kind of like draft day trades or whatnot to move up. But we decided to stay put, and I think it was a good decision overall. As much as I would love to have Christian McCaffrey, um, I think it was a good decision to stay put and not lose picks later on in the draft. Um, but I think and when you look at the guys that we got, the guys starting with the guys that you mentioned, Isaiah McKenzie, Carlos Henderson, as we got the late round guy, the other Henderson, D'Angelo Henderson,
Yes.
Coastal Carolina in the 6th round. It's like they took what Christian McCaffrey is really good at, and we formed our own Christian McCaffrey out of different guys, putting the skill sets of different guys together is kind of like what you get I mean, you pretty much get Christian McCaffrey his skill set out of these three guys, D'Angelo and Carlos Henderson, and then Isaiah McKenzie. Um,
By
very
the way,
shifty,
yeah,
very quick.
D'Angelo Henderson doesn't he remind you a little bit of Darren Sproles? I mean, he's got that stocky, short build. Could be a good third down type guy, right?
Actually, I would say, and that's not a bad reference or comparison. But I actually see a little bit more Maurice Jones-Drew
Okay, yep, yep.
out of D'Angelo Henderson because he runs with a little bit of power,
He can run inside. Yep,
not quite the power of Jones Drew, but yeah, he has that kind of he lowers his body and just kind of tries to go through you a lot of the time. Now he's got the speed, he's got quickness, and he's shifty, so he can make you miss, but he has a little bit more power than like a Darren Sproles would.
yep. Fair
Um,
point.
and one of the things that's really good about D'Angelo Henderson, which is rare for guys coming out of college, is he's got some blocking skills for pass blocking, and that's something that you don't see a lot of when comes to running backs out of college. A lot of them don't have that pass blocking skill, and he's got a little bit of that now. Certainly needs work as anybody would, but he's got a little bit of that, and I think that will certainly pay off. Now I think the only name that we haven't mentioned at all yet, because you did mention Demarcus Walker, I think that was a good second round pick. One guy that we didn't mention yet is our third round pick, Brendan Langley, out of little known Lamar.
I did mention him. I did mention him.
Did you mention him? Oh,
I
I
said,
must.
remember I said he's measurable, super fast,
Oh
tall.
yeah, that's right. You did mention that. I think a big reason that because a lot of people are like, oh, we have Bradley Roby waiting in the wings, and I'm thinking the reason they must have gotten this guy is because with how good Talib and Harris and Roby are, we're not going to be able to pay all of them the money that they deserve.
Yep, yep,
Um, so one of those guys, it's not obviously it doesn't look like it's not going to be Chris Harris because he signed that extension, so it doesn't look like it's going to be Chris Harris. But one of the guys between Talib and Roby, they're going to be gone
yep.
probably next year,
Agreed,
and so
agreed.
they got to have somebody who's going to be stepping up into that third spot. Um, to to be as effective and continue on this no-fly zone. So he's got the potential to turn into a legit number one or number two. I think at the very worst, he's going to be a special teams ace. I think at the
Yes.
very worst.
Well,
Um,
let me jump in here real quick. I got an interesting topic. How about this? Guys on the team that are on the roster bubble. You know, with this good draft class coming in,
yeah,
you're probably going to see some guys, maybe in their third, fourth, fifth year, contract years, that just don't make the roster. I'm gonna give you a couple names, and then I'll see.
I have a couple names in mind, but let's see what you say.
All right, so I've got a few. Number one, and we talk about this guy all the time because he's been one of the biggest draft disappointments in the history of the franchise, which
Where you-
is
I know where
the
you're going.
say Cody Latimer. Cody
Latimer.
Latimer. You know, we got two wide receivers in this year.
Yeah.
Latimer has caught like 7 passes in 3 years. Yes, he's a special teams ace. That may be the only thing that saves the roster spot for him, but he is firmly on the bubble.
Yes.
The other guy, Jared Crick. Now, number one, I didn't realize how bad this guy was last year. He just sort of got mowed over, and he
He was
was
terrible in the
run
run
defense.
defense.
And you know, all the Pro Football Focus and all these other places. I mean, they had him ranked like the worst D lineman in the league practically. And I think if Adam Goetz takes a big step up, we're hearing good things about him. They're calling him what baby Derek Wolf or Baby Wolf or whatever.
Yeah.
Apparently, he's put some weight on. He's stronger. He's recovered from the knee. So Crick could go. We'll see. The last guy I would say I think is a risk. And now I forgot who the heck I was going to say. Maybe Ty Sombrero.
Tyson Bryo, or whatever his name
Yeah,
is,
Tom Sombrero.
tackle.
That guy. Yeah, the tackle. Let's see what happens with him. If this guy gets nicked up in training camp or something, or during, he's probably going to be gone. I mean, he's just been a massive
Yeah, he could be
disappointment.
gone. And I think when talking about Cody Latimer, I think the reason he's gone is because let's say the Broncos pick, let's say they keep six receivers. Okay, let's say they're going to keep six receivers. Yeah, four of those guys are locked. That's Demaryius Thomas, Manuel Sanders, Carlos Henderson, and Isaiah McKenzie. Those guys are locks. They're pretty much locks because they're gonna, draftees plus the established guys. So that means there's gonna be two spots out of this set of receivers: Cody Latimer, Benny Fowler, Jordan Taylor, Khalif Raymond, Marlon Brown, and Hunter Sharp. Cody Latimer, as many opportunities as he's had, has failed to prove anything. And he's had the opportunities. So I think what they're going to want to do is they're going to give guys like Jordan Taylor opportunities. I think they'd even potentially go with Marlon Brown, who had a couple good games when he was with the Baltimore Ravens, or maybe they stick with a Benny Fowler. Now there's a chance that they go maybe Jordan Taylor and Cody Latimer, but I see them taking Khalif Raymond, Marlon Brown, or Benny Fowler over Latimer. I just don't think he makes the spot. Um, and that's where I'm at. I just think he
I can. Here's what I think on the wide
needs a
receivers.
change of scenery.
I think he does. He seems like a nice guy, but mentally he doesn't seem to be cut out to be a starter. Demaryius Thomas, he's a lock. Write that down. He's a lock.
Okay,
Emmanuel Sanders,
thank you.
lock. Carlos Henderson, lock.
Appreciate you clearing
Isaiah
that up.
McKenzie, I think, lock. I do think in the end Cody Latimer makes the team because
You
of
do.
special teams. The guy is a stud on special teams. And then I believe the last wide receiver, Jordan Taylor. And
I love that.
I'm going to tell you why. His size. He is a
Exactly.
great red zone target.
And he showed that even in the little bit of playing time that he had last year, like that long touchdown pass Simeon had to him on the in the right in the end zone, right as he's coming to the end zone, barely gets his feet down. It was actually a play that ended up having to be reviewed because it was called out of bounds at first, got reviewed,
I remember that was
touchdown,
unbelievable. By the way,
catches.
here's the other bubble guy I forgot. Jeff Howerman. Howerman gets cut if Jake Butt is
He's
not
healthy.
is healthy. You're going to go AJ Derby. You're going to go Virgil Green. You're going to go Jake Butt.
I think you're
If right, you agree?
right. I would agree with that. Yeah. Now, let me ask you something. We were talking about Chad Kelly earlier. Do you think that Chad Kelly has the opportunity here to push, maybe not for a starting gig, but do you think maybe let's say let's say Paxton Lynch wins the job. Okay, let's say Paxton Lynch wins the starting job. Do you think maybe there's a chance that Chad Kelly pushes and actually becomes a second string quarterback and Simeon becomes trade bait, or vice versa, where it's Simeon wins a job and Lynch becomes trade bait because they like what they have in Chad Kelly? Do you think that's something that they would consider?
Wow, that's an I didn't even thought of, I have not thought about that. Well, I think it's a bit of a mute point. You're asking a hypothetical, but I think it's a mute point because I'm pretty sure that they're going to put Chad Kelly. What are they going to put him on to protect him? IR or something, whatever they put him on, because he needs to heal. He's got some injuries, so I think he's not going to be on the roster this year. He'll be. Is it IR they put him on? What are they going to put him on?
Uh,
Whatever they call. Whatever
Practice squad, even maybe, I don't know.
they won't put him on practice squad because that would expose him to be picked off the squad. So, but let's assume he heals completely. To go back to your question, um,
I mean, we're talking sports. Almost everything we talk about in sports is hypothetical. So
well, how about this? Let me come at it at this angle. Where are you? Let's push Chad Kelly to a side just for a second. The big question, the biggest question we have is still unsettled. Is it Trevor or Paxton? Who's going to start game one?
that's I mean, that's I think that's the battle of the year in terms of the NFL. I
Oh,
think
it is.
everybody's going to be watching that. Um, who's it going to be? I mean, you have the experience with Simeon, more experience, but then you think if a first round pick, someone who we traded up for, a first round pick in Paxton Lynch, if he loses the job again, he's probably gone.
That's a bad sign.
He's
Very
probably
bad sign.
I mean, I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, I mean, what do you think? Do you think if he loses the battle to Simeon again, do you think he's gone, or do you think they're going to stick with him still?
Well, I think they're clearly going to stick with him for at least another year. But I'm telling you, I vacillate almost on a daily basis between Trevor and Paxton. Um, I think Trevor gives me a little more comfort because he's been in the system longer, and he
Yeah,
when he was and he when he was healthy last year, he was clearly serviceable. He was better than serviceable in a few games. In a couple games, he looked lost. It's tough to get a read on him,
I
but
think before he had that shoulder injury, he was 4-0 and looked. I think we all could agree that he looked really special
yeah,
until that shoulder injury, which clearly was much worse than we were letting
it
on
was. It
at the
was.
time.
So
Uh,
I think that here's what I believe. I believe it's Paxton Lynch's job to lose. Now, it doesn't mean I think he's going to start. He's going to have to clearly beat out Trevor Simeon. If it's a
yeah,
tie, you're probably going to go with Trevor. I think I think the deck is stacked towards Paxton Lynch, because they invested so much in him, and that's just the way the NFL works. They're going to want to get a return on that. And not only did they pick him in the first round, they moved up. They give up a third rounder also.
yes, yes,
And
they did.
the other reason I think it's the deck is stacked for Paxton is Mike McCoy. Mike McCoy runs an offense and
Mhm.
goes out of the gun, and I think that obviously caters more to Paxton Lynch than last year's offense. So I would probably give the slight edge to Paxton Lynch, but I would not be surprised if Trevor won the job. There's my Weasley answer for you.
Easily. Um, yeah, I think where I'm at, I think because wow, I'm drawing blanks right now. Um, when Paxton Lynch was drafted, now of course John Elway is still the general manager, and so he's the one who made the decision to draft him. And but we don't know how much Gary Kubiak had to play into that. This is Paxton Lynch is not Vance Joseph's guy. That's something to keep in mind. Paxton Lynch is not Vance Joseph's guy. Now I
Neither
think
is Trevor.
not neither is Trevor, so it's going to be I think a much more unbiased view when it comes to Joseph ultimately deciding who's going to be the starter. So I think it's going to be a much more unbiased view. I don't think he's going to, and unless he is told by John Elway, which he may be told by John Elway to play it a certain way, but unless he's told by John Elway, you know, to do otherwise, I think draft stock and where these guys, what they did last year, all these kind of things are not going to matter to Vance Joseph this year. I think he's gonna look exactly what he's seeing on the field every week, and it's gonna be different offensive system as well. Let's not forget, completely different offensive system. I think Vance Joseph, Mike McCoy, all these guys, it's gonna be an unbiased look. I think if it's completely up to Vance Joseph and John Elway is hands off on it, hit, Paxton Lynch's draft stock is not gonna play into it at all. That's the way that I look at it. Um, and so it really truly is going to be the best man's going to win the job, and it's going to be like that. I think, and I honestly believe whoever doesn't win the job is going to be trade bait.
Well, there's always a starting quarterback that goes down in the first quarter of the season, and if the trade bait, I believe, uh, could really play into our favor. We could really get some. If you think about what the Eagles got last year,
We could
right?
we could we could get great value.
I mean, get unbelievable value, but I think that's all contingent on we got to have a second teamer, and if maybe Chad Kelly's the guy who can step in depending on
Well,
his
there's
health.
also this. I don't know if you, and I don't think this guy's going to be a second teamer. But I don't know if you've heard anything about Kyle Sloter. Kyle Sloter, he's uh, a former Southern Miss and Northern Colorado receiver. Um, and he had one uh, 1 year as a starting quarterback at
Northern Colorado.
Yeah, in Northern Colorado.
Yeah, I
Um,
saw that guy. That guy has Camp Arm written all over him. I think they were like, hey, we don't even want to pay for an expensive plane trip for this guy. Let's just put him on a bus. He's in Northern Colorado. He's just the fourth guy we need here. But I don't know. You it sounds like you know more about him than I do.
well, I'm just looking at it. I'm just looking at it in a subjective, or objective terms. Um, if we really believe that whoever is, and this is all speculation, of course, all sports talk is pretty much. Um, if the loser of the starting quarterback battle is traded, we got to have somebody. And this guy Slaughter, he's got a very strong arm. He's very athletic. Like I said, former receiver. He's very athletic. I mean, you think about Ryan Tannehill was a former receiver before playing quarterback. Um, they might use him as a developmental guy, or they might practice squad him. You just don't know because right now they have three young quarterbacks. They have obviously Kelly and Simeon and Lynch. But if one of those three guys is gone, then that probably leaves Slaughter with a spot, or they go for a veteran guy who may still be on the market, like a Tony Romo. I'm just kidding.
Or like a Peyton Manning. Now,
Or
by the
like a
way,
Peyton Manning,
I've got an interesting
Brett
Peyton.
Favre.
I've got an Brett Favre. I've got an interesting Peyton Manning story. By the way, apropos to really nothing, but I really feel like Adam Gase should be our head coach. I wish we had not let that guy slip away. He looks like the real deal in Miami. And I'll tell you another reason I like Adam Gase. I just read before we went live on air, although we're not live, but that Adam Gase reached out to Peyton after Ryan Tannehill was injured last year. I mean, that's real grit. Uh, so what happened is kind of a funny story. Gase apparently texted Peyton Manning, and this is according to Archie Griffith, Peyton Manning's dad, and
Archie Manning.
Archie Manning. Yes, sorry. And so so Gase said, "Hey, 18, Tannehill went down. I think he's going to miss some time. The first question I'm going to get at the press conference in the morning is if I'm going to if I'm going to bring you to Miami. What do you want me to tell them?" Pretty clever way of asking Manning, right? What do you want me to tell
Very
them?
clever way.
So Manning texted back per his dad, uh, "You can tell them I could probably come play, but there's no way I can miss carpool the next 2 weeks." So he was
Miss
done.
Carpool.
Yeah, it was a nice way of saying no, I'm not coming back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But you got to
Basically,
appreciate Gase for even trying.
you got to give him credit. He wants to win, and he
He
wants to
wants
do
to
what
win.
it takes to win.
Yep.
And he
Yep.
liked I mean we loved Adam Gase regardless when he was here. We loved him anyway. But and
We could have
let's not
hired him and
cut
we
down
could have hired
let's not cut down Vance Joseph yet. He may end up being a revelation. We don't know yet.
I know, but
Um,
what I'm saying is we could have had Gase instead of Kubiak, but Kubiak won us the Super Bowl, so hey, we probably made the right call
we
there.
can't really be mad. We won a Super Bowl.
I know, I know, I know.
we are the classic fans that nothing is good enough.
Nothing's good enough. I want to see
Nothing.
that offense move, and if we had Gase, I just think our offense would be cooking. But we'll see what happens this year.
But we got McCoy.
I know McCoy's not bad at all.
You know what I mean?
He's got some credentials, and he was there in 2012 with Manning, and we had a really good offense that year.
Yeah, we did. Very, very good offense. Um, now, we were talking about quarterbacks and and what's going to happen if, let's say, one of these guys gets cut. Um, the only real names that I can think of, veteran names out there that would, potentially thing, is the wow, I'm drawing a complete blank right now. I just had the names.
We'll skip
Uh,
that. That's too remote. Why don't we? How about Jamal Charles? I mean, we got to talk about Jamal Charles before this
yes,
podcast is over. I mean, that is huge news. And a couple things. Jamal Charles has statistically speaking, is the greatest running back in the history of the NFL. I don't know how many people know that. He has
His
the
yards per carry is ridiculous.
better than Jim Brown.
Better than Jim Brown, better than Barry Sanders,
All
better than
those guys.
Henderson, all of them.
It's like 5.5 yards a carry. And
Yeah,
it's not like it's over a season and a half. That's over like 9 years, and
that's his
you
whole
know
career,
that's his whole career. So the guy's
and that
phenomenal.
includes the bad years that he's had with these
I
injuries.
know.
It's
So
unbelievable.
I love that signing, and I love the fact that he was being pursued by a number of teams. And you know what the difference was? John Elway. He grew up a John Elway fan, and that
And
must.
go ahead, go
I
ahead.
was going to say that must really annoy Kansas City fans.
We had this discussion. I think it was before the draft. We had this discussion about availability of Adrian Peterson, Jamal Charles. Who would we take? I think Ian made the case for Adrian Peterson. I made the case for Jamal Charles. I believe I swayed you in this. Even if all things were equal, even if all things were equal, Jamal Charles played on a former played on a division rival for his whole career. So that extra fire that he's going to have those two games, which obviously division games in a stacked division are extremely important. So there's two games that we play that we have Jamal Charles with that extra fire to really compete and or really stick it to him. Number one, number two, I love what he said. He said, "I'm here to be the guy." He
Yep.
wants to be the guy. Now he understands things may fall a different way, but he wants to be the guy. He wants to be the workhorse. Don't think he's gonna be the sole workhorse, especially with C.J. Anderson, and to a lesser extent Devontae Booker. Um, but he wants to be the guy. I think he's tired of these injuries putting him in the back seat. I think he really wants this comeback to be
Well, and let me, yes, and I agree with everything you just said right there. And guy, it would be really special if we get a good year or two out of him. One other thing I just want to mention about the division, you said stacked division, and you're right. We got a very strong division. However, I would tell you, I think this division, particularly with the moves that have taken place, you've got the Raiders going to Las Vegas, you've
uh
got the Chargers going to L.A. Those two moves uh, greatly enhance the future of the Denver Broncos.
Oh, I
Big
100%
time.
agree.
You've got the Raiders going to Las Vegas, where nobody in Las Vegas, practically speaking, is a Raiders fan. It'll take them 30 years to get a serious fan base, if they ever get it. It's such a transient city. They're going to fill the stadium with European people, with Japanese people, with Americans with Americans who are on a junket to Las Vegas and just want something to do. They're not going to have a home field advantage, and their players are constantly going to be hitting the casinos late at night. And listen, that franchise is doomed. I think it's a bad move for the Raiders.
Yeah.
And the type of players they attract to LA, I mean to Las Vegas, are probably not the type of players that are going to win. They're not the type of players Bill Belichick would recruit, right? So I think that's going to be a bad move for him. The other thing is L.A. No one's ever won it. No one's ever won in L.A. Now the Chargers go there, and they got to share the spotlight with the Rams.
Not only that, but they're playing in a 20,000 seat stadium. That's essentially a college stadium.
So they're not going to have a fan base. No one's going to care about them. And in the NFL, you have got to win at home. You need a huge home field advantage. The Broncos still have the best home field advantage in the league, and the separation between our home field advantage and the Raiders and the Chargers has gotten bigger.
Yeah.
So I love these moves for us.
And also, I mean, so I mean, very good points. The Raiders have potentially a Super Bowl
A lot of
team.
talent, right?
So, but I think if they're gonna win it, they gotta win it now. They gotta win it before they go to Vegas because, like you said, if they go to Vegas, I think it's done. I think they're pretty much done. For for a while. And then you look at the Chargers going up to LA. They're already pretty much in a rebuild. Uh, Rivers can only play but for so long, and they don't have much of a roster beyond him. Um, Kansas City is really the only team that looks to be a substantial threat for years to come, or at least the next 5 years
As
immediately.
long as Andy Reid's there, Andy Reid is an underrated coach. That guy is a
Underrated, yeah,
quality guy.
yeah.
So as long as he's there, the Chiefs. But the Chiefs still have the big problem. They don't have a championship quarterback, but they will. They're going to be our stiffest competition, I think, over the next several years if Reid stays there.
Well, yeah. I mean, you could be right. Now, um, moving on. I think we probably hit that topic enough. We have we've had OTAs that have been going on. Um, OTAs, organized team activities, and they released the schedule for the training camps and the reporting dates. So obviously we'll be talking a lot more about stuff when training camps is going. So the Broncos, their rookies report on July 23rd, and 3 days later is when the veterans are reporting on July 26th. Um, Now, of course, with the rookies, you have the draft picks and then a huge, or a substantial amount of um, free agent, drawing a blank, free agent, undrafted free agents. Thank you. I personally, I have recently switched jobs, been in the middle of a lot. I haven't looked too deeply into the undrafted free agents yet. I did look a little bit, like I said, into Sloter, the quarterback, just because quarterback's the premier position. You're kind of curious whenever you get a new guy at that position, especially with the young guys that we already have. It's a young quarterback room already, so you're kind of curious as to what people are seeing. But that leads me to actually a post that the Denver Post put on, I think it was today or yesterday, something like that, about the opportunity that the Broncos have here with how young their quarterback room is. They have an opportunity, which is an extremely rare one, to win big, potentially a Super Bowl, without hardly any money in the quarterback. And you think about, I think the last time this was done, uh, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong. Last time there was a quarterback or a team that won a Super Bowl without much money in the quarterback. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the Steelers with Ben Roethlisberger. I think he was a rookie,
I
or
don't know.
um,
I'm not going to correct you because I don't know if you're wrong or right, but I'll go with it.
Okay. When they won the Super Bowl, I know he was either in year one or year two, somewhere in that range, and so he hadn't got the substan. Now, of course, at that time, first round picks did get more money than they do now, but it still wasn't a substantial amount of money for a quarterback. And you have obviously within our own division, Derek Carr signing 5-year, $125 million contract, making him the richest player in NFL history, which beat out Andrew Luck's figure by, I don't know, like I think it was like $400,000 or $500,000, so barely beat it out. But I think the Broncos, I think with the way this team is built, with the receivers that we have, the offensive line improving, the defense no fly zone, and what we hope is going to be an improved run defense. This team, I think, and this is not just a homer or biased approach. I think this team does have a legitimate shot to make it deep into the playoffs, potentially Super Bowl, without spending any money, really substantial money on a quarterback. And I'm just trying to think, how often in history has that been the case?
We will let our listeners research that for us, but yeah, it's interesting, and it allowed us to spread some money around to some other positions. So we'll see. But it's a mute point unless one of these two guys we have
Well,
steps up.
also, I think another thing that's interesting about it is it's even more drastic now because we're in an inflated age of quarterback contracts. I mean,
That's true.
you're gonna see. I mean, with this deal that happened with uh, Derek Carr, you're probably gonna see Kirk Cousins and Matthew Stafford and guys like that get huge money as well. Guys who are good quarterbacks, no doubt, but are not worth anything that probably what they're gonna get. It's an inflated age of quarterback contracts, and so especially in a day. day and age like this to have quarterback not eating into your contract, not eating into your salary cap. I think Broncos need to take advantage of that.
All right. So, yes, I agree. Let me finish with this because it's getting a little late in the podcast.
Yeah,
I wanted to touch on one final topic, and I guess we lost Ian, and let me just
yeah. I
apologize
was
to
hoping we get him back, but
yeah,
unfortunately
let
we're
me
not
just
able to.
apologize to our loyal fans. I know a large contingent of the audience, mainly the female listeners, tune in just to hear Ian's voice. So,
Specifically for Ian.
yeah,
Yeah,
so we're very, very sorry about that. But hopefully next time. So the NFL schedule was released a couple months ago, and I thought our schedule for this year was pretty interesting. So listen to this. First game, we're Monday night. We're at home against the Chargers, right? McCoy's old team. I think he's going to be ready for that. Second game, we're at home. Dallas, marquee team, comes into Denver.
wow.
Third game, we're on the road at Buffalo. Fourth game, we're back in Denver against the Raiders. So 3 out of the first 4 games home. We play the Chargers, Dallas, Raiders in Denver. After week 4, we have a bye. Then we stay in
I hate that early buy.
then we stay in Denver and we play the New York Giants. So 4 out of the first 5 games are at home. Let me tell you something.
We have
We
to
had
start.
we had better be 4-1. With
Yeah.
all those, we better win all 4 of those home games, or if we lose one, we better beat Buffalo on the road. But we're going to know after week 6 because the bye week will be behind us, and we'll have 4 home games already. What the season's going to look like? We got to take advantage of that.
Because we end with so many away games in the second half of the
Of
season,
course. Yep.
without a bye, without a bye in the second half.
A lot of
Uh,
traveling,
we got to start
including
hot.
coming to Philadelphia,
We got to start hot. I'm sorry,
including a trip to Philadelphia, which I
Philadelphia,
believe
where
some
you're at.
some some Etheridges will be coming up here for that game.
I
That
think
will
they're
be a
playing in Washington as well.
Um, that's that's right. They are playing in Washington.
That'll probably be another trip. Um, I am obviously the furthest from there. You guys are all on the East Coast. I'm out here in Idaho. Um, but I definitely want to make. I at least want to make one of those games. Probably the Philadelphia game. Um, but that is interesting. That's good to bring that to the attention because that I wouldn't have even thought about that. And I do want to do probably we'll do this next podcast when we have Ian, who can weigh in as well. But I do or maybe even after training camp podcast. I really want to go game by game and see what we're thinking in terms of how well we think we're going to do over the season.
Yeah,
Um,
I tell you what, we've got New England again. Luckily, it's in Denver. It's funny. We used to always go to New
see how
England.
often we play them.
We used to always go to New England, and we used to complain about it. But the last 4 years, New England keeps coming to us. So we've got New England, we've got Cincinnati in Denver. We travel to Miami. That's gonna be a tough game.
Miami's a good
Um,
team.
we got Jets at home. We're traveling to Indianapolis, traveling to Washington. We've got a pretty brutal schedule. I got to tell you. Uh,
Speaking of the Jets, their former Broncos receiver duo got broken up entirely with Marshall going to the Giants and Decker actually just got signed by the Titans. That team is definitely a team in rebuild mode. So I
who?
would hate I
Jets?
would hate if we didn't pull that win out. So even on the road, I would hate if we didn't
Oh,
pull
oh
that.
yeah, the Jets. Yeah, Decker apparently didn't get a lot of interest. I think a lot of people feel he's going to be physically damaged goods. He's had some significant injuries. So
I
hey,
I
you
wouldn't have
ready?
been upset I wouldn't have been upset to get him back, because in terms of a third receiver, we're largely unproven. We have high hopes for the rookies that we drafted. We have high hopes for Jordan Taylor, but largely unproven. And with as young as our quarterback room is, I think experience as much experience as we can get the better. Especially because we don't have like a veteran tight end that they can go to and as their security blanket. So I would not have been upset if we had gotten Decker again and having Sanders in the slot more often. But but it's but I also really like the rookies and stuff that we got. So, anything else that you want to hit on real quick before we call it a cut?
No, I just want to thank you, Austin, for being a diligent leader of this podcast team and for bringing us together. It's going to be a long summer. You know, I can't wait till training camp gets started and we get into preseason
Yeah, it's
um, to see how this team takes shape. I mean, God, what an interesting year! New coaching staff, and we got the
it
quarterback
is gonna be it's
competition. And
gonna be quite the year. And we have a new coaching staff and young quarterbacks, and we're still not in a rebuild. Isn't that interesting?
it is.
Isn't that
All right,
weird?
man. I'll let you bring it home.
Alrighty, well, obviously, thanks for joining us. We'll try to be a little bit more diligent in terms of getting these podcasts out to you sooner. Again, we had the technical difficulties on our last one, and obviously trying to get Ian and in on this one. We had some technical difficulties there, so we really need to hire an IT guy. If anyone's interested, let us know. Um, as always, visit us at dbronxpodcast.com. Also, dbronx podcast on YouTube and SoundCloud. And we're still working on getting a backlog so we can get ourselves on iTunes and make it much easier for everybody to subscribe to that and listen to that. So, from Kevin, from myself, and to a lesser extent from Ian. uh, Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you in a couple weeks leading up to training camp. Have a good one.